While and do-while loops are two common programming structures. What they allow you to do is repeat a block of code a certain number of times. These are used throughout programming. If you think of a card game repeats the same pattern over and over again. And that's exactly why we have while loops. We're going to take a look at how to structure them in Java in this video. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a counter variable. Now, I'm a big proponent of giving my variables declarative names. However, in loops, it's often permissible just to name it I or X. So that's going to be our counter variable. I, by the way, stands for iterator. So in a while loop, we say while I is less than 101. And what happens is we continue looping while this condition is true. So as long as this condition remains true, we continue to loop. So we say while I is less than 101. So now all we're going to do is we'll say system out print, instead of print line, print I, and then a space. And then we'll increment I by 1. This is the same thing as saying I equals I plus 1, so we'll add 1 to the value of I. So this loop should start looping at 0, and then add 1 each time through till we get to 101, in which case 101 is not less than 101. This will be false, and we'll stop looping. All right, so let's go ahead and compile this and see what we get. So let's see, Java C loop demo. Compiles without error, so let's run it. Loop demo. And there you see, 0 all the way through 100. So this worked just fine, just as we expected. It output all the numbers 0 to 100. Now, we don't have to count by 1. We could do something like this. I plus equals 5, which will add 5 to I each time. Compile, and, compile twice, compile and run. And now we get 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, etc. Notice its continuation condition doesn't change, just the output does, because we're still, when we hit 100 or over 100, it's no longer less than 101 and we stop. Now, if the initial condition is not true, for example, 105, the first time through the loop, 105 is not less than 101, so we will get this time, when I compile, there's no errors, but we get no output at all because the loop never runs because our initial condition is false. Now, the other type of loop is a do-while loop, and it's kind of like a back-loaded loop. And it's guaranteed to iterate at least once. I'll show you how that works. We'll say int x equals, let's go backwards this time, equals 200, and we'll say do while x is greater than 0. So the while condition is at the back end, but it's the same basic idea. System out print line, or so let's do system out print, and we'll say x plus a space, and then this time let's say x minus equals 10. So we'll start counting at 200. We'll print out 200 in a space. We'll subtract 10. Well, 190 is still greater than 0, and we'll keep looping until we get down to 0, in which case the condition will no longer be true. Now remember, this one isn't going to run at all, so we're only going to run the do-while loop. So again, we'll compile. Oops, looks like I forgot a semicolon right there. Java really helps you when you make an error. It shows you exactly where it is if it's syntactical. Okay, that took care of it. And now I'm going to go ahead and run it. And there we get 200, 190, 180, etc., all the way down to 10. So the do-while loop is a backloaded loop. But here, if the initial condition is not true, the loop's going to execute at least once. So let's say our initial figure is negative 500. Negative 500 is less than 0, so this condition is false. But it is going to iterate at least once because it's not tested until the end. Let's go ahead and compile and run. So it outputs negative 500, and then it stops. So both while loops and do-while loops are structures in Java that allow you to execute a block of code many times.